Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our college football predictions for Week 5. Last week I won a respectable 11-6, which brings my total season record up to 37-18. And this week is pretty stacked, so I'm not going to dilly-dally, waste time any further. Jumping into Friday night, where Florida State will be taking on the Virginia Cavaliers. Florida State, ever since beating Alabama, they've been dropping 60-point bombs on their no-name schools. While Virginia, they got a win over Stanford last week, which brings their season. I think they only lost one game this year, or they might be undefeated as well. And they said this game will be closer than you think, and also giving it us a Friday night at and Florida State's on the road. You never know what's going to happen. But right now, Florida State, they're on a mission. I'm gonna go ahead and take them to win this game, but I think Virginia's going to keep it very close. And in our other Friday night game, we have TCU taking on Arizona State. TCU beating SMU last week, and Arizona State needing a field goal to beat Baylor last week. And with this game being played in Arizona State, like I said with Virginia, you never know what's going to happen in these games. But I'm actually going to go against the spread. I'm picking TCU to win this game. I think TCU is another team that's on a mission. They have been playing very good football this entire season, and only now people are paying attention to them. I think I think they're in play for a very wide open Big 12. And following that, we got Georgia Tech taking on Wake Forest. Georgia Tech beating Temple last week. Wake was on a bye week last week, but last time we saw them, they end up blowing a 24-17 lead to their in-state rivals, NC State, where some barbecue bands smoked up the stadium that I was at. And yeah, Georgia Tech should take care of business in this one. I'll be surprised if Wake pulls off the upset. And following that, we have the USC Trojans taking on the Illinois Fighting Illini. USC beat up on Michigan State last week in the After Dark game of the week, while Illinois, ugh, less said about your game, the better. Seriously, how does a top 10 team give up 60 points against Indiana? I mean, I get it's Indiana, but giving up 60 points as a top 10 team, that is outrageous to think about. Now, this game is being played in Illinois, and I could see USC actually dropping this one. USC will always have at least one or two games where they're favored, just like this one, and they'll find a way to crap the bed. And I think this game might be one of those instances. I'm also going to go against the spread. I'm taking Illinois to win this game. Hopefully, they get a good bounce back. Throw away last week's tape. Focus on this week. But if they don't, it's time to ring some panic alarms. And now we have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Notre Dame, as a ranked team, got their first win of the season against Purdue. And Arkansas, they blew it against Memphis on the road, a group of five school. And this game is being played in Arkansas, so I do think they have a fighting chance. But especially given that Notre Dame's defense, which was an anchor last year, is being a literal anchor and bringing the team down this year. So, yeah, this one's actually kind of tough to predict. Part of me want to pick Arkansas, but realize Arkansas is pretty much a one-man team. It's Taylor Green and no one else. I think Notre Dame squeaks out a win this week, but Arkansas, I'm not going to fully count you out in this one. It could go in any direction. And now I got the Rutgers Scarlet Knights taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Rutgers losing to Iowa last week on a Friday night. And Minnesota, I believe they had a bye week last week. Correct me if I'm wrong. And with this game being played in Minnesota, I am going to go ahead and take the Golden Gophers to win this one. Now we have the Duke Blue Devils taking on the Syracuse Orange. Duke getting a win over their in-state rivals NC State, handing State their first loss of the season, while Syracuse surprised everyone and beat up on Clemson. Now, the scoreboard does not tell the story in that whole game. I think Syracuse dominated that game from minute 1 to minute 60. The score just made it look closer than what it seemed. And despite all this, Duke is still favored by almost a touchdown. Because we all realize if Duke doesn't turn the ball over, they're a pretty good football team. When they do turn the football over, they're not a good football team. But because I am an anti-Duke guy, I'm thinking Syracuse could build off of this momentum and get a win over Duke. But at the same time, it's probably going to wind up being a trap game for Syracuse. Let's move on. Now we have the Louisville Cardinals taking on the Pitt Panthers. Louisville actually been kind of quiet this year. I haven't seen much action between this team. While Pitt, last time we saw them, they lost the backyard brawl. And I know Pitt is supposed to be one of the top teams in the ACC, but time and time again, I learned to never trust this school. Never ever trust Pitt. They'll always find a way to let you down, and because of that, I'm taking Louisville to win on the road against the Pitt Panthers. And now we got a game on TNT of all places. The Cincinnati Bearcats taking on the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas beating the ever-living crap out of West Virginia last week. While Cincinnati, again, after their week 1 game against Nebraska, I feel like they went remote silent as well. Probably playing their cupcake teams before getting ready for Big 12 play. But with this game being played in Kansas, and I know Kansas' spread is much smaller than it should be, I still think Kansas will come out on top and get the win. Now we got the UCF Knights taking on the Kansas State Wildcats. UCF beating the Tar out of Tar Heels. And Kansas State, their season so far has not been going well at all. Apparently they're following the Ireland curse, which is whatever a team plays in Ireland and mostly lose, they wind up having a pretty bad season. And so far this has happened to Kansas State. They are currently 1-3 at the season, which includes 0-2 in Big 12 play. Actually, they're not 0-2 in Big 12 play. They're only 0-1, but they did lose to Army, and they lost to Arizona. Last time we saw them, they lost to Arizona, which was a non-conference game. But luckily, they're favored. Hopefully, they took the bye week, regroup, get back on track. They should get a win over UCF. And now we have a game against we have the Washington Huskies taking on the. Now, the has been pretty quiet. They played a bunch of non-conference games. They're the number 1 ranked team in the country, while Washington got a win over their in-state rivals, Washington State. And I sense trap game here. Ohio State's favored by double digits, sure, but this is being played in a tough environment. Crowd's going to be rocking. And Washington, there are no slouches. But I think Washington will keep it close for at least the half. But then the is going to show up and take the win. But if you're planning on betting on this game, consider going against the spread. That's all. And now we have LSU taking on Ole Miss. LSU getting a win over Southeastern Louisiana, where the offense finally showed up. Ole Miss beat up on Tulane at home. And this game is being played in Ole Miss. And I've gone back and forth with this one. Because Austin Simmons, their quarterback, he's not expected to play in this game. I think they should just roll with the hot hand with the other guy. LSU got a good defense, so I don't expect a lot of points. And I know everyone's hyping up LSU. Yeah, I'm gonna have to flip a coin on this one. And I think the coin's gonna slightly lean me towards LSU to win on the road. Because that defense is, oh my goodness, is pretty good. Now we got the Auburn Tigers taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. Auburn losing to Oklahoma last week. It was pretty much a tough loss. A&M had a bye week, but last time we saw them, they finally got a statement road win over Notre Dame. And this game being played in Kyle Field, I'm I'm gonna go ahead and take A&M to win this one. I think they finally convinced me that they're gonna be just fine for now at least. Just wait till November. Now we got the Utah Utes taking on West Virginia. Utah coming off a tough loss to Texas Tech, where it seemed like they turned the ball over like 50 times. West Virginia coming off of another loss where they lost pretty big to Kansas. And I think this is a get right game for Utah. I'm going to go ahead and give them a win here. Let's move on. Now we got the Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Indiana, they made a statement last week. Not only did they beat Illinois, they kicked the ever living crap out of them. 63 points. And it goes to show you that Indiana, they're still here. They're still going to be here. They're still going to be. I still think, and me personally, I think this squad is better than last year's squad. Meanwhile, Iowa scored 38 points against Rutgers. Yeah, that's a sentence I thought I would never say. But right now, Indiana for me, they convinced me that they're going to be around for a while. I think they're going to get a win over Iowa. I just trust their offense a little more than Iowa's offense. Even though Iowa's offense last week had a pretty good week. Oh, God. We got a game. We got a game. UCLA 0-3 taking on Northwestern 1-2. Oh boy. UCLA had a pretty eventful couple weeks. They fired their coach Deshaun Foster, former Carolina Panther running back, after just 19 games. It might have been less, but it was just not working out. This was a case where things just didn't work out. Meanwhile, Northwestern, well, they're also coming off a bye week as well, but they're 1-2. But at least they lost to Oregon, which make it a little bit respectable. I don't care who wins. I'm just gonna educatedly guess Northwestern. This might be a game for all the times. And now we got the California Bears taking on the Boston College Eagles. California got blanked against San Diego State. After a hot start to the season, they went on the road against San Diego State and laid an egg. Literally. Meanwhile, Boston College, they're coming off a bye week where they lost to Stanford. They're 1-2 on the season. And right now, and luckily this game is at home, California got to travel a far, far away. It's a long road trip for those guys. I think jet lag might play a bigger role in this game than you think. I'm going to go with Boston College to take the home win. Speaking of teams that had a pretty eventful week, the Baylor Bears and Oklahoma State. And forget about this game. I am going to take Baylor to win this game. But Oklahoma State, I thought they would never do it. I thought they would let Mike Gundy resign with grace. They said, nope, he's fired. A man who's been there over 2 decades, and he didn't even get a proper send-off. That is cold. I know Gundy's time as coach has passed, but you don't do a coach who's been there for 2 decades, got you on the cusp of championships for a couple of those years like that. Even if you have, yes, sure, Oklahoma State lost to Tulsa last week, but again, could at least let them resign with grace. And now we got the Tennessee Volunteers taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Tennessee, got a win over UAB, Alabama Birmingham, where Trent Dilfer was out there taking pictures of Tennessee. I don't even know if that's even legal. Where Mississippi State completed their non-conference slate, a perfect 4-0 in that non-conference slate, so that's pretty good. I also think this is a trap game for Tennessee. The Cowbells gonna be bringing Tennessee right now. They're still feeling pretty good about themselves. Sure, they lost to Georgia week 3, but they're feeling pretty fine. Do I think Mississippi State has a chance? Absolutely. But I think Tennessee, I just love their passing offense. I really love their passing offense this year. I'm going to go with the Volunteers in this one. And now we got the Arizona Wildcats. I know their rivals are going to hate me for that. Taking on the Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State's coming off a bye week, but they're a perfect 4-0. Arizona, I can't recall what they did last week. I really can't. They might have had a bye week themselves, but they might have played a no-name school. Who knows what they did? But anyway, this game being played in Iowa State, I got the Cyclones going to a perfect 5-0 in this one. But I think Arizona State, I gotta stop saying that. I think the Wildcats is going to give them a fight. Now we got the Virginia Tech Hokies taking on the North Carolina State Wolfpack. Virginia Tech got their first win of the season over Wofford, and that comes 1 week removed after firing Brent Pry, who was a pretty terrible hire in hindsight. As for North Carolina State, they lost to Duke last week. And this game being played in NC State, Virginia Tech, obviously not a great football team this year. I think State rebounds and get the win. And now we have a game that ESPN may crown as game of the week, but there's a much better option that we'll get into. The Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the Georgia Bulldogs. Both teams coming off a bye week. Alabama, last time we saw them, Ty Simpson finally found his accuracy button as they beat the ever-living crap out of Wisconsin. While Georgia, he had to use overtime to beat Tennessee. Now, last year when these two teams played, it was pretty much the game of the year. Alabama jumped out on them like 28-7. Georgia then came all the way back, took a 1-point lead late in that game, and then Ryan Williams became Ryan Williams. And don't forget, he was 17 at the time. ESPN loved to let you know that. Now, this game is being played in Georgia, and one thing I do want to mention, Georgia has a home winning streak of like 50-plus games. And I think the last time they lost at home might have been 2018 against Vanderbilt, if my memory is correct. They were the last team to beat Georgia at home. A lot of teams came close, but they just haven't. But Athens, Georgia is a tough place to play. Alabama has been Georgia's kryptonite ever since Georgia won the national title game. And for Georgia, I know I'm gonna hate doing this. I'm probably gonna kick myself into doing this, but I think the home streak comes to an end. Now Alabama has figured out their offense. They had a bye week to figure things out. I know Georgia on paper is the better team, but I sense there may be some shenanigans in this football game. Sorry. And following that, we have Kentucky taking on South Carolina. South Carolina coming off their second straight loss to Missouri. Kentucky, honestly, I don't know what they did last week. They might have had a bye week. They actually did have a bye week. And I'm thinking South Carolina is going to rebound, get the win. Here, in our After Dark game of the week, we have BYU taking on Colorado. BYU going on the road, getting a win over East Carolina, while Colorado got a home win against Wyoming, where they went back to Salters for quarterback, and they probably should stick with him for the rest of the season. This is a rematch of the Alamo Bowl, where BYU beat up on Colorado, and I think this game It's going to be no different. I got the Mormons beating up on the Deons. And then our last game of the week. Oregon is taking on the third ranked Penn State in whiteout night. Oh boy. Oregon's coming off a win over Oregon State. Penn State actually had a bye week last week, but they had a cupcake of a non-conference schedule. And this is a game where I honestly could go back and forth on this one. Because you got Oregon, who is, I actually think they're better than last year, and Penn State in a whiteout, which is tough to beat. And this is really giving me a heart. This might be the hardest game I might pick this whole year. But Penn State, one thing about Penn State, they know how to drop big games. I'm not confident in this pick. I'm going to lean towards Oregon to win. And on that note, let's end the prediction video right here. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Gamble safely. I'll see you next time.